So this is a video to help with your language paper 2 persuasive writing lesson on Friday the 3rd of April. What will you need to do this lesson? Well, you should be able to download everything from Show My Homework, but once you've got this YouTube clip up and running, it'd be a really good idea to have your paper 2 booklet in front of you. If you don't have it, if you weren't able to collect one from school, this isn't essential. You'll be able to pause the video and write down the question, or you can download an electronic copy of the paper 2 booklet from Show My Homework. And you need something to write with, or if you're typing, type up your work. So today you're going to develop your ability to plan and approach paper 2 tasks. And paper 2 is writing to give an argument or a point of view. So part of this involves developing the way you use rhetorical devices and vocabulary. This is a 50-minute lesson, so by the end, I'm hoping that you'd have planned your writing and you'd have started it. Maybe you've just written the first 1 or 2 paragraphs. So I'm going to go back and remind you of your persuasive writing booklet and what it looks like. So here we go. English language paper 2, section B, practice booklet. And on the front here, you've got some of the key skills you should be practicing, and I've highlighted a couple there just to remind you. The first one, where it says clearly identifiable argument here, that's just to remind you that, your job is not to give a balanced argument in this writing. Your job is to think of your point of view and maintain that point of view over the whole duration of your writing. And you're being asked to use engaging linguistic devices. Now, the term linguistic device might sound really complex, but really, this just means you have to consider the type of sentences and the vocabulary you use. So, repetition is a linguistic device, alliteration is a linguistic device, simile, metaphor, engaging vocabulary, these things all count as linguistic devices, and they're what you should be practicing. And finally, using discourse markers effectively to organize your writing. So, if we continue to have a look at the booklet, you've got some ideas about how you plan there, which you could read, and expectations about how the different styles of writing should look. Now, today you're going to be writing an article, so it might be worth pausing the video and just reading this. In particular, think about how you make sure you've got a title or a headline as if your article would be in a newspaper, and think really carefully about the type of people who read newspaper articles. We'll come to that a bit more later. And you've got a glossary of devices, things that you might use in your writing. This is almost like a page you can refer back to when you're writing to try and help you with some of the techniques you could include. And here's a glossary of discourse markers. Now, discourse really just refers to your writing. So a discourse marker helps mark the different bits of your writing. So it helps connect, contrast, emphasize, and really these words and phrases are crucial for organizing a longer piece. And there you've got some useful vocabulary which you might use. Okay, so this is the task for today's lesson. And what I want you to do in a moment is pause the video, read it, and try and pin down really precisely the audience, the purpose, and the form of your writing. Okay, pause the video and do that now. So, you have to write an article for a newspaper in which you explain your point of view. So the form is an article in a newspaper. So that just means the type of writing. And from that, you should be able to infer who your audience is likely to be. What sort of people are going to read newspaper articles? Now, your article is going to be about childhood obesity, and it's probably not the case that children are the type of people who would pick up a newspaper and read it. Therefore, you could probably almost aim your article at older people, and many of whom may be parents themselves, or aunties or uncles or grandparents, so they would have certain relationships with young people, even though they're not necessarily children themselves. And your purpose is to explain your point of view. Remember what we said earlier, your job is not to give balance, it is to keep to one perspective or argument and sustain that throughout the whole piece. Second reading of the question then. If you've got your booklet in front of you, you can highlight, circle, underline little bits here, but I want everybody to read the question, the task, again, that statement up here in the quotation marks, and spend 4 or 5 minutes bullet pointing or mind mapping the type of things they could discuss in their article. And remember, your job is not to cover necessarily everything in the statement, but to zone in on 2 or 3 of the most important, interesting ideas you want to discuss. So pause the video and give that a go. Okay, so says child obesity is on the rise and many young people don't understand how to eat healthily. Now you could zone in on that straight away. Maybe you think that young people do understand how to eat healthily, but there are other things stopping them from doing so. Maybe it's the food that's on offer in schools. Maybe it's the problem with the way unhealthy products are advertised, for instance. Or these are the different things that you could include. Or you might say, yes, young people don't know how to eat healthily. Therefore, schools should be having lessons on it. So in the second bit, you're asked about schools and whether they should be doing more to educate young people. You might say, yes, they should. They should have lessons. They should have better cookery classes, whatever. Or you might say, well, actually, schools are doing a really good job. They have PE, we have cookery, we do lots in schools. But why do they sell us this unhealthy food? So you might talk about the type of food that's on offer in schools. Or you could talk about local councils, you could talk about government. You could say, well, it's all well and good asking children to do exercise, but where are they going to go? You could discuss local parks, keeping them safe and clean and tidy. You could discuss local leisure centres and sports facilities. Are they available? Are they accessible? Are they um, cheap enough? That means that they can be accessed by young people. Lots of things you could discuss here, and you need to narrow it down and think about the ideas that you feel you can write your most interesting article about. Okay, so here's an approach to planning. So I'm going to describe this planning approach to you. It's a plan with 5 sections, and after I've described it, you need to pause the video and spend some time planning your piece. So section 1 is the introduction. Here it's mostly about making it engaging and interesting and trying to grab the reader's attention and thinking about how you're going to establish your ethos. Who are you? Are you a teenager writing this article or a parent writing this article? Give an overview of the topic and begin to hint at your overall opinion. Section 2 or paragraph 2, what is the issue? What is the main problem? Outline it as you see it. Section 3, this is a bit where you sort of argue against an idea. Maybe some people think the problem would be fixed if, I don't know, teenagers were less lazy. Maybe some people just think teenagers are lazy, so they don't bother doing exercise. And you can explain why this is wrong or misguided. Section or paragraph 4, the real solution. This is where you outline the most important, crucial ideas about fixing this problem, whether it's schools, government, facilities, food. How are we going to solve this issue? And then lastly, the conclusion, where you sort of give your final thought to the readers of your article and think about what message you want to leave them with. And that might be how they support young people, bearing in mind that the audience is likely to be older people, not teenagers, reading this article. Okay, so like your other persuasive tasks, there's 4 rhetorical devices for you to try and include. Number 1, and this is something you can go and add to your plan, presuming you've now paused and spent a good 10 minutes planning. Cyclical structures just means repeating an idea from the introduction in your conclusion. So if you raise an issue in the introduction, you could go back to that issue at the end. If you ask a question in your introduction, you could sort of provide the answer at the end. It doesn't have to be a large thing here, but just a subtle way of connecting your conclusion to your introduction. Secondly, epiplexis, quite a complex word for what is quite a simple and effective rhetorical device. And this just means a sequence of rhetorical questions. So instead of just using one question, you can use 2, 3, or 4 in a row. And an example here below, you could complete those sentences yourself or come up with your own that might appear in your article. So I would pause, have a go, add it to your plan. This might be a sequence of questions you use in your article. Device number 3, a list of 3 verbs within a sentence. So this is about vocabulary and sentence patterns. I am shocked, appalled, and disgusted by. So you can see the 3 verbs there. Or all over the country, teenagers are begging, pleading, and yearning for more youth clubs and facilities. So you can see that these 3 verbs, when listed together, really heighten the emotional impact of your work. Again, pause the video and write a sentence or 2 of your own where you list 3 verbs in that style that could be included in your article later. Lastly, metaphor. So metaphors are subtle ways of having an emotional impact, and often within persuasive writing, we can build our metaphors around bad things and good things. Bad things like prisons, good things like medicine or seeds and flowers. So here's how that might work. We must act now and free our children from the cruel chains of social media. So you can see that the word free and the words cruel, the phrase cruel chains, contribute to this sort of metaphor of imprisonment. Secondly, our children need to be nurtured in order to blossom and flourish. You've got words like nurture, blossom, and flourish, which all connect to this metaphor of growth and sort of linked to flowers and trees and uh, the growth of children, metaphorically. Okay, last slide is just some sentences that you could use to start off your article. They're all sort of different, and some have repetition, some have rhetorical questions, some have direct address, but just a range of ways that you could use, edit, adapt to just to get going on your writing. Okay, good luck.